Buongiorno, buon pomeriggio, e buonasera, Lazio world. Welcome to our instant reaction pod. I'm your host, Sean McIntosh, going at it solo today. Our friend Caleb Adams still out of the country, unable to jump in today. I've got a ton of thoughts, hoping to keep this one a little bit more brief, so I don't get myself into an incoherent situation, because I'm not happy. Here to talk about Sassuolo, Lazio, just finished 1-0 to Sassuolo, a match that, I think may be an indicator of who this Lazio team is this season, unfortunately. But let's start where we always do, at the starting 11. Not a ton of changes here, I guess, for the best. Lot of rumors that Cataldi was going to see himself in that starting regista position today due to an injury, some fitness issues. Rovella dealing with a knock post national team. Rovella in the starting 11, which, we would get to a place where maybe we question that insertion. Dele Bashiru finding himself in that dual pivot role in that midfield with Guendouzi. And look, this is 3 straight matches with that combination of Dele Bashiru and Guendouzi. Thought maybe we would pull the plug, but Sarri elected to stick with that. A back line of Tavares, Romagnoli, who is back, taking his place in that starting spot ahead of Prosgard, Gila, Marusic at right back. That attacking trio has remained unchanged this season. Zaccagni, Tatti leading the line, and Cancellieri in that attacking side on the right. And this one really gets off to just a sloppy start. Again, an indication of what we would end up seeing for the entirety of this match. But 25th minute, we see a bit of controversy, certainly amongst Laziali. This would come down to a card given and taketh away. So 25th minute, Sassuolo issued a red card for a challenge on Rovella that, after a look at VAR, a very quick look at VAR, it was overturned, and he was only given a yellow card. So my stance on that was that I think the refs absolutely made the right call. Had it stayed a red, it would have been a very, very harsh red. Ultimately, look, we hear the arguments that Lazio never the beneficiary of calls. Oh, poor is us. We're always on the wrong end of things. Look, there are times when the calls go wrong, and absolutely. And are we on the wrong end of more of them than not? Probably. But that doesn't change the fact that I think the right call was made. If our very own, if Rovella was on the other side of that challenge and had been issued a red, we would have been fuming. I don't believe a game-deciding moment like that should be decided based on the past. And look, Belayan was given a red last year for something similar. I don't care. I think the right call was made. It would have been extremely harsh, and ultimately, it's no excuse for the way we came into this one, the way we played. 40th minute, Rovella down hurt, quick sub, Cataldi on for Rovella. I think we saw a first half, honestly, again, an indicator for just what we would see the entirety of this one. But halftime ends, and we've got no shots. We've got 0.11 XG, 0 ideas, 0 creativity, particularly in the final third. Slow build-up play. And it takes a halftime substitution of Belayan coming on for Dele Bashiru for us to start seeing a little bit of life. We ultimately put on Pedro for Cancellieri. Tatti has to be subbed out because of what looks to be some sort of a leg muscle injury. We can only hope that he's back next week for the derby. And then 62nd minute, Zaccagni with a diving header that is miraculously saved. And in typical Lazio fashion, shortly after, about 8 minutes later, in the 70th minute, Sassuolo, off of a corner kick, find themselves ahead 1-0 after both Gila and Romagnoli, marking their man, dunked on with a header. Zaccagni keeping the last Sassuolo attacker onside for what is deemed a good goal. And then really not a ton of chances until the 91st minute off of a corner. Nuno plays a ball in. Gila, completely unmarked, gets a free header that does not find the frame. This one ending 1-0. My 3 words I can condense to simply one: uninspired. This Lazio side has said it, slow in their build-up. No ideas in the final third, particularly in that first half, until we were able to make changes. You've got Cancellieri, who just simply has very little ideas once he gets in and around the box. Dele Bashiru, once again, third match in a row where he is invisible. The stats in this one, and 59% possession for Lazio, but Lazio very clearly the team with less bite. Expected goals 0.76. Sassuolo with a 1.13. We had 13 shots to Sassuolo's 10. 3 of those on target. Only one big chance. Of course, we missed our one big chance. I don't know what to say. There's not a ton of positives. We've seen the Jekyll and Hyde of this team. Looked absolutely disastrous against Como. Looked much better against Verona, but again, it's a Verona side. And today, against a team having just spent their time in Serie B, and we fail. Look, we know the quality in this side is lacking when you look at the roster, and really only a couple game changers here and there. When you lose somebody like Rovella, the impact is far too great because we just don't have enough quality. And I don't want to be Mr. Negative and super pessimistic. Came into this season maybe a little bit more optimistic than both Laziali, and I don't want to overreact, but I really, after 3 matches, some ups and downs against any sort of quality. We've got the derby next weekend. I have to wonder if this is the side, if we'll be lucky to be a mid-table side, unless by some miracle we do something in the winter market, which we know historically is not something that's likely to happen. So yeah, it's hard to be really positive. Just an uninspired match, no real quality. Again, we saw some urgency. Of course, Pedro comes on late, and you start to see a little bit of life, and he just brings the energy. Belayan, I thought, as well. Zaccagni tried to turn it on in moments. But yeah, I think, look, we want to talk about man of the match. Who are our top performers? Again, this one, not a ton of inspiration, but we always try to be a little bit positive. I think for me, my favorite player, the man of the match that really stood out, was Nuno Tavares. I thought, top down, I think he's improved defensively. Sadi has done a much better job of putting him in situations where he's not so attack-minded, and he's forced to be a little bit smarter. I thought he was the one player from kickoff to that 95th minute that was pretty energetic, that was trying to create chances. He created 5 chances essentially by himself. He was pulled down. He earned a free kick late in the match. I just, again, not a ton of positivity. Outside of that, there were glimpses. Of course, Rovella, I thought, played a really sound first half, doing what he typically does. But coming off early with the injury, it's hard for me to really look up and down the performances and think too highly of anybody else. Again, some very small glimpses of Zaccagni maybe trying to do something. I thought defensively, Mario Gila was really, really strong. But man, he lets us down at the end of the match with just a really poor attempt on goal. Again, you're so often you're not so often going to have just an unmarked header off of a corner kick like that. And he's just got to do better. But I thought defensively, he at least was a bright spot. But in terms of our bidone, a lot of names to go around. I think, man, look, if there's any sort of real injury to Rovella, let's just pray that he is available, fit, and okay, particularly for the derby next week. I've got to talk about Sadi as being a real bidone, because again, we knew that Rovella was struggling, and if there's any match to sit the man, look, it's got to be Sassuolo, you would think. Cataldi should be able to do the job. Cataldi is a serviceable player in Serie A. And if he can't do it against Sassuolo, and again, Cataldi knows Sadi. It was by and large the starter under Sadi in his last season with us. So no reason to force Rovella to play this one. And maybe it was precaution, knowing that the derby was ahead, knowing that he was on a yellow card. So that is my hope. But in terms of the players that I think really struggled today, Cancellieri, it's becoming increasingly more difficult to think that he is that player that should be starting in that role. 3 matches, 3 pretty uninspiring starts from him today. Look, there are things I like about him. I think he does some of those things that Sadi really values. I think he tracks back. I think the effort is there. I think he has some pace to him. He was finding himself in some open space, but when he gets himself into that final third, you see his decision-making start to slow down. It's like he doesn't know what to do when it comes to that final pass, taking somebody on, finding the shot. And so I don't know if he's just in over his head, if he's not comfortable, but we did see Isaacson come on late to no effect whatsoever. But we know we saw a really bright Isaacson last year, so we can only hope that he puts himself into a position to find that form, and it's probably time to insert Isaacson back into the starting lineup if he can find fitness after that long absence due to sickness. So Cancellieri for sure up there for Bidone, but I think if I'm going to stake a claim on one player that deserves it the most today, it's Delebashiru. Another poor match from him. Look, halftime substitution is an indicator of just not being it on this day. And that's not to say that Delebashiru can't come in and find a place and find a role, but 3 straight matches. The first match, of course, the pairings in midfield. In that first one against Como, we saw Rovella, of course, not playing in that one. We had Cataldi instead until a late substitution. Saw Rovella in the match, but we've had 3 matches where Guendouzi and Delebashiru were your 2 number 8s, and very simply, the combination of that probably doesn't make sense. You've got 2 players who don't have the technical ability to break through, that have the creativity necessary to put our attacking trio in positions to at least have scoring chances. And as a result, Delebashiru, not that he's particularly like poor, he's so invisible. Again, he doesn't find himself in attacking situations. He's not in and around the action. He's not in and around the final third. You just don't see a lot of him, and that's the case now for 3 matches in a row. And you have the halftime substitution. You see Belayan come into the game a lot more lively, a lot more involved in the build-up, in and around the final third, and starts to create space for others. Zaccagni starts to find himself with the ball a little bit more, with a little bit of space for him to put his head down and attack the defender. So I just don't think Delebashiru makes sense. Not if you're going to play Guendouzi as your number 8 on that right side of the midfield. So for me, my bidone, Delebashiru, 3rd straight match, 3rd straight poor performance. And ultimately, it's the failure on this midfield to really unlock anything. I know co-host Caleb had mentioned this, and it's a really good shout. Tati Castellanos, particularly in that first half, just was playing too high up the pitch. We saw our success when it comes to Tati when he drops back a little bit more, particularly when you've got Dele Bashiru, who is invisible. We just don't have a creative outlet. The strength in Tati Castellanos is his ability to play on the ball and involve his teammates and be a creative outlet and really assist in that build-up and his nice little 1-2, his hold-up play. And he wasn't as involved today as he should have been. We have to find a way to drop Tati a little bit deeper to get him involved. And so we didn't see any of it. The attack was stagnant. The buildup was really slow. Unfortunate. I just, it's really hard to see this side and be hopeful because of the quality, because of the style of play with Sadi. And I'm left a little bit hopeless right now. So big derby next week, Sunday. I've got to call out the Serie A schedule makers for this match. Really tough to believe that Lazio Roma, the Derby della Capitale, is somehow scheduled as the early match on Sunday. So this is an afternoon match in Italy. This is my time, local time. I'm here on the West Coast in the United States of America. I'm going to have to wake up at 3 a.m. to watch this match here. So that's 6 a.m. East Coast time. I just, again, hard to believe that this is what the schedule makers thought was the best. The prime time evening match that same day on Sunday is Inter Sassuolo. You're telling me the Derby della Capitale is not getting prime time viewing scheduling. It's the afternoon game with the choreo, the displays, the incredible atmosphere. We're putting that as a daytime early game. It's just insane. The matches on Saturday, again, none bigger. You got Bologna, Genoa, Verona, Juve, Udinese, Milan. And somehow the Derby gets pushed to the side. I just head scratching from Serie A schedule makers in terms of the opportunity for broadcasts globally, certainly in the North America market. That is a key market for Serie A. Just doesn't make sense, doesn't help the league, doesn't certainly help the two sides in Rome. So just figured I'd call that out. But I will be there with my espresso early in the morning, and I'm not going into this one very optimistic. Now, our friend Sempre Lazio here on YouTube does chime in that Giovanni Simeone did score a game winner today against Roma. So Torino did beat Roma today. So both sides going into the derby with a lot of questions, with a poor performance. We know that your performance and your quality and how you look going into the derby really means nothing. And so this honestly is a toss up. So we know Sadi has done well in this match, particularly when Mourinho was at the helm. But I don't know. I don't know. Be curious to hear where everyone's head's at and their predictions going into this one. I can't necessarily give one because I am so dumbfounded by this squad and don't really know what to make of us. Again, not really hopeful right now, given what we saw today, given what we saw against Como. But you know, I'll wait to see if this side, if Sadi can kind of figure something out and unlock us. Not sure what that is when there's not a lot of real class in this side. So I wanted to keep this one a little bit shorter so I don't find myself going on a long rant. But here we are against Sassuolo. Win, lose, draw. We find ourselves in mid-table, bottom of the table. It's sempre forza